The massive alien ship hung in Earth's orbit like a crystal mountain floating in space. It was called the Harmony of Purpose, and it belonged to the Galactic Concordat, a group of 17 ancient species that had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They had come to Earth with a simple message: submit or face destruction. Admiral Catherine Moore stood on the bridge of the starship Defiance, watching the alien vessel through the main view screen. She was 63 years old with short silver hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in tense silence, each person aware that the next few minutes would change human history forever. "They are calling us again," said Lieutenant Daniel Price from the communications station. He was young, barely 25, and his hands shook slightly as he worked the controls. "Put them through," Catherine ordered. A hologram appeared in the center of the bridge. The alien ambassador was called Velith, and he was a Sithrani, a being made of purple light contained within a body of living crystal. His kind had helped create the Concordat thousands of years ago, and they believed themselves superior to all younger species. Admiral Moore, Velith said, his voice carrying strange musical tones. "You have had enough time to consider our generous offer. The Concordat extends its protection to your species. In return, you will give us your military ships, accept our population controls, and submit to our governance. This is what we do with all developing civilizations. It is for your own good." Catherine looked at Commander Gregory Santos, her second-in-command. The stocky man from South America simply shook his head. They had discussed this moment many times. They knew what they had to do. "Ambassador Velith," Catherine replied, keeping her voice calm and steady, "I have been authorized by the United Earth Council to give you our answer." She paused, making sure every word would be remembered. "Humanity says no. We will not give you our ships. We will not accept your population controls. And we will never let you rule us. You should leave our solar system within 6 hours." The crystal body of Velith pulsed with bright light, showing his anger. "You do not understand what you are refusing. The Concordat does not ask, we tell. In 3,000 years, no species has ever rejected us. Your defiance is foolish. You will obey, or you will suffer." "Then we will suffer," Catherine said. "Defiance out." The hologram disappeared. Daniel Price turned from his console, his face white with fear. "Admiral, are we really going to fight the entire galaxy?" Catherine looked out at the stars, at the huge alien ship that made even their largest battleship look small. "They gave us no choice, Daniel. They never planned to. The Concordat does not want friends. They want slaves. And humanity will never be anyone's slave." The news spread across Earth within hours. Everyone learned about the alien demand and humanity's response. Some people called it crazy. Others said it was the only choice free people could make. In Geneva, Secretary General Antonio Reyes spoke to the United Earth Council. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face lined by years of difficult decisions. "We have been getting ready for this moment for 50 years, he said. "When the first Concordat probe came to our system, we intercepted their messages about listing primitive species for conquest. We knew then what they really wanted. Our grandparents built bunkers. Our parents built spaceships. And we built a civilization that would rather die fighting than live on its knees." Every member of the council voted yes. Earth was united against the alien threat. 6 hours later, the Harmony of Purpose left. Ambassador Velith sent one final message: "You have chosen death. The Concordat pacification fleet will arrive in 90 of your days. Enjoy your last weeks as a free species." Admiral Moore watched the alien ship disappear into faster-than-light travel. She said quietly. "We need to use them well." Cross Earth, preparations began immediately. General Marcus Webb took charge of the defense from a command center buried deep under the Rocky Mountains. He was a former Marine who had fought in the resource wars of 2089, and he knew that normal military thinking would not work against such a powerful enemy. "We cannot fight them ship to ship," he explained to his officers on the 15th day. "Our intelligence says their fleet has over 800 vessels. We have 47, but we have something they have never seen before. We are a species that has spent its whole existence fighting itself. We know war better than any of them. Captain Lisa Bradley, who commanded the orbital defense platforms, leaned forward. You mean guerrilla warfare? In space? I mean making them pay for every bit of space they take, Marcus replied. Every asteroid in our system has been turned into a weapons platform or a trap. Every moon is a fortress. Every civilian ship now carries nuclear weapons. We have hidden thousands of stealth drones with antimatter bombs throughout the solar system. The preparations continued day and night. Factories that once made cars now produced missiles. Universities became training centers for soldiers. Children learned to hide in underground shelters while their parents learned to fight. On day 42, the first volunteer pilots completed their training. Hannah Cole was one of them. She was 24 years old, a former cargo ship captain who had never expected to become a warrior. Now she climbed into the cockpit of her converted freighter, now called Attack Craft 17. Her instructor, Lieutenant Commander Victor Reese, was an old soldier who had fought in the Martian independence movement. He gave her one last piece of advice. The Concordat has never lost a fight because they have never met anyone willing to die rather than give up. They think we are like all the other species they have conquered. Scared, alone, ready to break. Show them what humans really are. Hannah thought of her younger brother stationed on Europa, of her parents working in underground farms, of everyone on Earth who was depending on her. I will show them, she promised. On day 70, something unexpected happened. A small ship arrived carrying a refugee from an alien species called the Keth. His name was Netherol, and his people had been conquered by the Concordat 300 years ago. I came to warn you, he told the council, and to help if I can. The Concordat shows your defiance to the whole galaxy as entertainment. They call you the doomed apes and make bets on how fast you will fall. Why help us? Secretary General Reyes asked. Because my people were once like you, proud, brave. We fought for 11 years before they broke us. Now we clean their floors and dig their mines. They have killed 90% of our population. Our culture exists only in hidden memories. He handed over a data crystal. This contains everything I know about their military tactics and ship weaknesses. It is not much, but maybe it will help you fight longer than we did. General Webb took the crystal. We do not plan to just fight longer. We plan to win. On day 89, Admiral Moore spoke to the entire human fleet. Tomorrow, the Concordat arrives. They expect to find a broken species ready to surrender. They will find something very different. They will find humanity. That night, across Earth and throughout the solar system, people held their families close. They prayed to their gods. They checked their weapons and their ships, and when morning came on day 90, they were ready to fight. The Concordat pacification fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, like a swarm of metal insects. 847 ships came out of faster-than-light travel, ranging from small, fast fighters to enormous dreadnoughts the size of small moons. It was the largest military force ever sent against a single species. Fleet. Commander Dexvor watched the primitive human system from his command ship, the inevitable submission. He was a Grathian, a reptilian warrior with green scales and sharp claws. He had conquered 11 species in his career and expected this to be his easiest victory yet. Begin standard pacification procedures, he ordered. Send the forward ships to destroy their orbital defenses. This should be finished within 2 of their days. His tactical officer, a young Sithrani named Keleth, studied the sensor readings with growing confusion. Commander, we are detecting thousands of small objects throughout the system. They appear to be artificial. It's debris and mining equipment. Dexvor said dismissively. These primitives are hard workers. That will make them good slaves once we conquer them. The forward attack force of 150 ships accelerated toward the inner system. They moved with confidence, their crews already thinking about the celebration that would follow. Another easy victory. They made it halfway before the first wave of hidden drones activated, Admiral. Catherine Moore watched from the Defiance's combat center as the tactical display lit up with explosions. Antimatter. Warhead hits confirmed, reported Captain Samuel Green. From the tactical station. 17 enemy ships destroyed. 32 more damaged. They are regrouping, Commander Santos observed. Forming defensive formations? Good. That means they are scared. Catherine allowed herself a small smile. Launch the second wave. And tell the asteroid batteries to begin their attacks. Throughout the outer solar system, asteroids that had looked dead suddenly came alive. Hidden engines ignited. Weapon systems powered up. Hundreds of disguised warships began their assault on the invaders. Dexter stared at his display in shock. What is happening? The asteroids are attacking us. They have turned their entire system into a weapon, Commander, Kelleth reported, his crystal body flickering with worry. We are taking fire from every direction. Our formations are breaking apart. No primitive species has ever done this. X-Force stopped himself. He could not afford to be surprised. All ships change formation. Focus fire on the largest threats. We will burn this system clean if we must. The battle for the outer solar system lasted 6 hours. The Concordat forces pushed forward despite their losses. Their technology was too advanced, their numbers too great. But for every inch of space they took, they paid a heavy price in ships and lives. Pilot Hannah. Cole flew her attack craft through the wreckage of a destroyed Concordat destroyer. Her hands were steady on the controls even though her heart was pounding. Around her, space was filled with explosions and weapons fire. 17 to command. I am in position to attack their supply convoy. 17 warning. You have enemy fighters behind you? I see them. Hannah checked her weapons. 1 nuclear warhead left. Tell my brother I love him. She did not wait for an answer. She accelerated directly toward the convoy. 12 huge transport ships carrying the troops the Concordat would need to occupy Earth. The enemy fighters followed, their weapons burning her shields. At the last possible moment, Hannah armed her warhead and ejected from her cockpit. Her escape pod shot away at maximum speed, while her attack craft continued toward the convoy. The explosion could be seen from Mars. When rescue ships found her escape pod 4 hours later, Hannah was unconscious but alive. She had destroyed 3 transport ships and damaged 4 others. She became the first human to receive the Medal of Stellar Valor. But the Concordat kept coming by the end of the first week. They had pushed into the inner solar system. They had lost almost 200 ships, which was more than they had ever lost in a pacification campaign. But they still outnumbered humanity's remaining forces by more than 10 to 1 on Mars. The colonial militia made their stand at the Olympus Mons fortress. For 3 days, they held against wave after wave of Concordat assault troops. The fighting was fierce and brutal. Governor Patricia Harrison led the defense from a bunker deep inside the ancient volcano. She had been a mining engineer before the war, never expecting to become a military leader. Now she commanded thousands of soldiers fighting for their homes. They are breaking through the eastern wall, her assistant reported. Patricia studied the tactical map. They had maybe 12 hours before they would have to retreat. Start moving the civilians through the tunnel networks. Soldiers will hold as long as possible, then fall back. Governor, there is nowhere to fall back to. This is our last position. Patricia looked at the young man. He was barely 20 years old, born on Mars, had never even visited Earth. He deserved better than this. Then we will make a new position, she said. Humanity does not give up. We adapt. We survive. And we keep fighting until there is no one left. The Battle of Olympus Mons became legendary. When the Concordat finally broke through the defenses, they did not find a conquered people. They found a destroyed facility. The Martian colonists had collapsed the tunnels behind them and disappeared into the planet's vast underground cave systems. It would take the Concordat 8 months to control Mars. And even then, resistance fighters continued to attack from the shadows, destroying supply depots, killing officers, making the occupation a nightmare. Throughout the solar system, the pattern repeated. Humanity did not fight the way the Concordat expected. They did not form neat battle lines to be destroyed. They hid. They ambushed. They sacrificed themselves to take out enemy ships. They fought with a fury and desperation that the ancient species had never seen before. The HFY found himself growing frustrated as the weeks turned into months. Every victory cost more than it should. Every conquered position became a new battleground as human resistance fighters emerged from hiding. "These creatures are insane," he complained to his officers. "They throw themselves at our ships. They blow up their own buildings rather than let us use them. What kind of species chooses death over submission?" Keleth, his tactical officer, had begun to study human history in an attempt to understand them better. What he found disturbed him deeply. "Commander, these humans have spent their entire existence fighting each other. They have had thousands of wars. Millions of them have died in conflicts over land, resources, beliefs, even pride. They are not choosing death over submission. They are simply doing what they have always done, fighting." The HFY did not understand. In the civilized galaxy, species fought only when necessary, only for clear advantages. The idea of fighting simply because you refuse to stop was alien to him. "Then we will give them so much death that even they will break," he decided. But as the war continued, as human resistance spread and Concordat casualties mounted, the HFY began to wonder if that was even possible. The humans had a saying that one of his intelligence officers had found, "Give me liberty or give me death." He had thought it was just words. Now he was beginning to understand that for humans, it was a promise. 18 months had passed since the Concordat invasion began. On the surface, it looked like humanity had lost. Mars was occupied. The outer colonies were conquered. Enemy ships controlled the space above Earth, but deep underground. In cities carved from rock and hidden from alien sensors, humanity was far from defeated. Secretary General Antonio Reyes ran the resistance from a bunker 3 miles beneath the Swiss Alps. The facility had been built during the Cold Wars of the previous century, then expanded and strengthened when humanity first learned of the Concordat threat. Now, it housed the last free government of Earth. The bunker was crowded with officers, analysts, and communication specialists working around the clock. Maps covered the walls, showing resistance activities across the solar system. Every day brought new reports of ambushes, sabotage, and small victories against the occupiers. "The Europa cell destroyed another supply depot last night," reported Colonel Amanda Foster, the head of intelligence. "That is the third one this month. The Concordat is having serious problems keeping their forces supplied." "What about our losses?" Reyes asked. 12 fighters killed, but they took out enough supplies to feed 1,000 enemy troops for 6 months. Reyes nodded. The math was brutal, but necessary. Every supply depot destroyed, every ship damaged, every officer killed made the occupation more difficult. The Concordat had expected a quick victory. Instead, they were bleeding slowly. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening far beyond the solar system, Neth-RL. The Keth refugee, who had come to warn humanity, sent a coded message that made Reyes's heart race with hope. "The galaxy is watching you," Neth-RL reported. "Your resistance is being broadcast everywhere, even though the Concordat tries to stop it. They call you the defiant ones now, not the doomed apes. And your example is inspiring others." "What do you mean?" Reyes asked. "The Keth are rising. For the first time in 300 years, my people are remembering who we used to be. We are not alone. The Frenari have started refusing to work in Concordat factories. The Vexborn are sabotaging their own ships. Everywhere I look, species that submitted long ago are beginning to resist again." Reyes felt tears in his eyes. "We never meant to start a revolution. You did not start it. You reminded us that it was possible. The Concordat has always controlled the galaxy by making everyone believe that fighting back is useless. You have proven that belief wrong. Even if you lose, you have already changed everything." This news gave humanity new strength. They were not just fighting for themselves anymore. They were fighting for every conquered species in the galaxy. Admiral Catherine Moore had not been wasting time during the months of occupation. From a hidden base in the asteroid belt disguised as a dead rock floating in space, she had been rebuilding what was left of the human fleet. Ships that had been damaged were repaired. Concordat vessels that had been captured were modified with human weapons. New pilots were trained in secret facilities scattered throughout the solar system. Slowly, carefully, a new fleet was being born. Captain Samuel Green, now her second-in-command after Commander Santos died defending Europa, brought her the latest intelligence reports. "The Concordat thinks we are finished," he said. "They have gotten careless. Most of their heavy warships are focused on suppressing rebellions that are starting in other systems. Their supply lines are stretched thin." "What about their main supply depot?" Catherine asked Dot. Samuel pulled up a holographic map. "Here, in the Kuiper Belt. It is the center of their entire operation. Everything they need to maintain the occupation flows through this one point. If we destroy it, we cripple their ability to hold our system." Catherine studied the map carefully. The depot was defended by 60 Concordat ships. She had only 23 vessels ready for combat. "The odds are bad," she said. "The odds have always been bad," Samuel replied. "That has never stopped us before." Catherine smiled. She had been waiting for this moment for 18 months. "Get the fleet ready. We attack in 3 days." The news of the planned attack spread through the underground resistance. Volunteers came forward from everywhere. Some were veteran soldiers who had survived the Saint battles. Others were civilians who had learned to fight during the occupation. All of them knew this mission might be their last. Hannah Cole was now a squadron leader, commanding 10 attack craft from her ship, which she had named the Victor Reese after her instructor who had died earlier in the war. When she heard about the mission, she requested to lead the first wave. "You have already done enough," Admiral Moore told her. "You have earned the right to stay back." "With respect, Admiral, I did not become a pilot to stay back. My brother is still fighting on Europa. My parents are hiding in underground farms. Everyone I love is counting on us. I need to be there." Catherine understood. She felt the same way. "Very well. First wave is yours." The attack force gathered at the hidden asteroid base. 23 ships that represented everything humanity had managed to hide, repair, or build in 18 months of occupation. Their crews knew the odds. They knew many of them would not return. But not one person asked to be left behind. On the night before the attack, Catherine addressed her people one final time. "Tomorrow, we do something the galaxy believes is impossible. We strike back at an enemy that has conquered thousands of species. We attack a force that outnumbers us 3-1. We fight not because we are sure we will win, but because some things are worth fighting for no matter what." She paused, looking at the faces of her officers and crew. Some were old veterans. Some were young volunteers. All of them were ready. "The Concordat believes we are beaten. They believe we are hiding in our tunnels, waiting to die. Tomorrow, we show them how wrong they are. Tomorrow, we show the entire galaxy what humanity can do when our backs are against the wall." The crews returned to their ships. Final checks were made. Weapons were loaded. Engines were warmed up. In the quiet hours before dawn, Hannah Cole sat in her cockpit and looked at a photograph of her family. Her brother standing tall in his military uniform. Her parents smiling on their farm before the war changed everything. She kissed the photo and tucked it into her flight suit. "For you," she whispered. "For all of you. Our 300 hours." The fleet began its silent journey toward the Kuiper Belt. 23 ships carrying the hopes of an entire species, flying toward a battle that would change the course of the war. The Concordat had no idea they were coming. The human fleet arrived at the Kuiper Belt supply depot at 0347 hours, Earth Standard Time. They came out of the darkness of deep space like ghosts, their engines running cold to avoid detection. Their weapons charged and ready, Hannah Cole led the first wave. Her squadron of 10 attack craft flew in perfect formation, each pilot trained to the limit of human ability. Behind them came the larger warships under Admiral Moore's direct command. The Concordat depot was enormous. Hundreds of storage units floated in space, connected by tubes and walkways. Transport ships waited to carry supplies to the occupation forces. and surrounding it all were 60 warships. Their crews relaxed and confident that no enemy could possibly reach this far. They were wrong. "All wings, this is Reaper-led," Hannah announced over the radio. "We go in fast and hard. We do not stop until that depot is burning, or we are. For Earth, for humanity." She pushed her throttle forward and dove toward the enemy. The first minutes of the battle were chaos. The Concordat defenders, caught completely by surprise, scrambled to respond. Their ships broke formation as they tried to identify and engage the attackers. Human pilots used this confusion perfectly, darting between enemy vessels, launching missiles, and disappearing before the larger ships could target them. Admiral Moore watched from the Defiance's bridge as her tactical display filled with explosions. "First wave has engaged," reported Captain Green. "Enemy formation is breaking up. Multiple hits on their outer defenses." "Take us in," Catherine ordered. "All ships attack pattern Omega. Focus on the supply containers. The more we destroy, the harder it becomes for them to maintain the occupation." The Defiance led the charge, its weapons blazing. The old battleship had been patched and repaired so many times that almost nothing of the original remained. But its crew fought with the skill of veterans. Behind it came the rest of the human fleet, each ship finding its own targets among the storage units. Fleet. Commander This-Vor received word of the attack aboard the Inevitable Submission, which was stationed in Earth orbit. He could not believe what he was hearing. "They are attacking the supply depot." "With what forces?" "We destroyed their fleet months ago." "Apparently not completely, Commander," his intelligence officer reported nervously. "Early reports indicate at least 20 human vessels engaged in the assault. 20 ships against 60 defenders. They are committing suicide." "They are winning, Commander. We have already lost 8 ships, and the depot is taking heavy damage." This-Vor felt something he had rarely experienced in his long military career. Fear. Not fear of the humans themselves, but fear of what they represented. A species that could rebuild its fleet from nothing, that could strike from nowhere, that refused to accept defeat no matter how hopeless the situation. "Send reinforcements immediately," he ordered. "Every available ship in the inner system. We cannot let them destroy that depot." But reinforcements would take hours to arrive, and the battle was happening now. Hannah Cole flew through a storm of weapons fire, her hands moving on the controls almost without thought. Around her, pilots from her squadron fought and died. She saw one ship explode to her left, another spiral out of control to her right. But she kept flying, kept fighting. Reaper led, "This is command. We need you to clear a path to the central reactor. The Admiral is bringing in the heavy ships for a direct assault." "Understood, Command." "All Reapers, follow me." What remained of her squadron formed up behind her. Only 5 ships left out of the original 10. They flew directly into the heaviest concentration of enemy fire, their weapons taking out defensive platforms and smaller vessels. Lieutenant, Commander Victor Reese, had been Hannah's instructor, the man who had taught her everything she knew about combat flying. He had died leading a similar assault early in the war. Now Hannah was doing what he had done, leading from the front, showing her pilots that courage was more important than fear. One by one, her squadron fell. 4 ships left. Then 3. Then 2. Each pilot died, clearing the path that would allow the larger human vessels to reach the depot's heart. Finally, only Hannah remained. Reaper led, "Pull back. You have done enough." Negative, Command. "The path is not clear yet. One more defensive station needs to go." She targeted the station, a heavily armored platform bristling with weapons. Her ship was damaged, her shields nearly gone, her ammunition almost exhausted. None of that mattered. For Victor, she whispered as she began her attack run. The station's weapons tore into her ship. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Fire erupted in her cockpit. But she held her course. Launching her last missiles at point-blank range, the station exploded. Hannah's ship, crippled and burning, tumbled through the debris. She managed to eject just before it broke apart completely. Her escape pod shot away from the destruction, carrying her unconscious body to safety. Admiral Moore saw the path was clear. All heavy ships advance. Target the central reactor. The Defiance and its escort ships drove through the gap that Hannah's squadron had created. Concordat vessels tried to stop them, but were pushed aside or destroyed. Nothing could halt the human advance now. Catherine personally targeted the reactor with the Defiance's main weapons. Fire everything we have. The barrage was tremendous. Missiles, energy beams, and projectiles all struck the reactor simultaneously. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the reactor began to glow brighter and brighter. All ships, emergency retreat, Catherine ordered. The human fleet pulled back at maximum speed. Behind them, the depot's reactor went critical. The explosion was visible from Pluto. When the light faded, the Concordat's main supply depot no longer existed. 41 enemy ships had been destroyed. 12 human vessels had been lost, including most of Hannah's squadron. But the mission was a complete success. Aboard the inevitable submission, HFY received the damage reports in stunned silence. The depot was gone. Months of supplies were destroyed. The occupation forces would begin running out of food, ammunition, and spare parts within weeks. This changes nothing, he insisted to his officers. We will simply bring more supplies from home. But everyone knew it was a lie. Supplies from Concordat space would take months to arrive. The human resistance would use that time to grow stronger, and word of this victory would spread across the galaxy, inspiring other conquered species to rise up. The humans had done the impossible. They had proven that the Concordat could be hurt, could be beaten. Keleth, the tactical officer, spoke the words that everyone was thinking. Commander, perhaps we should consider negotiating. HFY turned on him with fury in his eyes. Negotiate? With primitives? Never. We will crush them if it takes every ship in the Concordat. But even as he spoke, reports were coming in from across Concordat space. The Keth had seized 3 military bases. The Frenari had declared open rebellion. A dozen other species were showing signs of unrest. The galaxy was changing, and it had all started because one small species had refused to give up. In her escape pod, drifting through the debris field, Hannah Cole slowly regained consciousness. She hurt everywhere, but she was alive. Through her tiny window, she could see the remains of the depot burning in space. She smiled despite the pain. They had done it. They had actually done it. Her radio crackled. Reaper led. This is Defiance. We have your position. Rescue shuttle on the way. You did good today, Commodore. Commodore. They had promoted her. Hannah laughed, then winced as her broken ribs protested. The war was far from over. But for the first time since the invasion began, humanity had real hope that they might actually win. The destruction of the Kuiper. Belt Depot sent shockwaves through the Concordat. For the first time in 3,000 years, a pacification fleet had not just been resisted, it had been crippled. Supply lines were broken. The occupation forces on Earth and Mars were trapped without support. And across the galaxy, conquered species watched and wondered if freedom was possible after all. Fleet Commander HFY received report after report of disasters spreading throughout Concordat space. The Keth rebellion had grown from a few isolated incidents into a full-scale uprising. The Frenari were refusing to work in the factories that produced Concordat weapons. Even some Grathians, his own species, were questioning whether this war was worth the cost. This is what happens when you fail to crush resistance quickly. The Concordat High Council told him via long-range communication, "You have allowed these humans to become a symbol. Now every malcontent in the galaxy thinks they can defy us. Give me more ships," HFY demanded. "I will burn their planet to ash. That will end their resistance permanently. There are no more ships to give. Every fleet is needed to deal with rebellions elsewhere. You will have to finish this with what you have." HFY ended the communication and sat in silence for a long time. He had commanded the most powerful military force ever sent against a single species. Now half that force was destroyed, and the survivors were running low on everything they needed to maintain the occupation. He made a decision that would have seemed unthinkable. When the war began, prepare my shuttle. I will speak with the human leaders directly. On Earth, the underground resistance received word that a Concordat delegation wanted to negotiate. Secretary General Reyes was suspicious. It could be a trap, he said. They might want to locate our command center. Or they might be desperate, Admiral Moore replied. She had returned from the Kuiper Belt victory to help plan the next phase of the war. Their supply situation must be worse than we thought. They cannot maintain the occupation without that depot. Even if they are sincere, what could they possibly offer us? They came here to enslave us. We will never accept their rule. No, but we might accept their surrender. The meeting took place on neutral ground, a destroyed space station in Earth orbit that neither side controlled. The HFY War came with a small escort. Secretary General Reyes came with Admiral Moore and a squad of heavily armed Marines. The two groups faced each other across a table made from debris. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. You have fought well, the HFY War began. Better than any species we have ever encountered. The Concordat acknowledges your strength. We do not need your acknowledgement, Reyes replied. We need you to leave our system and never return. That is not possible. The Concordat does not retreat. It would encourage other species to resist. Admiral Moore leaned forward. Other species are already resisting. The Keth, the Frenari, a dozen others. Your empire is falling apart. The question is not whether you will retreat, but how much more you will lose before you accept reality. The HFY War's scales shifted color, showing his anger. You are arrogant for a species that nearly went extinct. We are honest, Catherine replied, which is more than I can say for the Concordat. You came here pretending to offer protection when all you wanted was slaves. You broadcast our defeat as entertainment for your citizens. You underestimated us from the very beginning, and now you are paying the price. The negotiations lasted 3 days. The HFY War tried every tactic he knew to gain some advantage. Reyes and Moore refused to give an inch. In the end, the Concordat commander had no choice but to accept humiliating terms. The Concordat would withdraw all forces from the solar system immediately. They would recognize human territory extending 100 light-years in every direction. They would release all human prisoners and return all captured property. And they would broadcast a message to the entire galaxy admitting that they had been defeated by a species they had called primitive. The HFY War signed the agreement with barely controlled rage. This changes nothing in the long term. The Concordat will return when we have dealt with the other rebellions. Your victory is temporary. Every victory is temporary, Reyes replied. The difference is that we will be ready when you come back, and we will not be alone. The Concordat withdrawal took 3 months. Human ships escorted enemy vessels out of the system, making sure they took nothing that was not agreed upon. On Earth and Mars, occupation troops were rounded up and sent home. Resistance fighters emerged from underground hideouts to celebrate in the streets. 5 years after the Battle of Earth, Secretary General Antonio Reyes stood before the first assembly of the Galactic Liberation Council. Representatives from 37 species filled the chamber. All of them had been subjects of the Concordat. All of them were now free because of what humanity had started. We gather here not as conquerors, Reyes said, but as partners. Humanity did not want this war. We did not ask to become symbols of resistance. We simply refused to kneel. He looked out at the diverse faces before him. The gray-skinned Keth, the crystalline Sithrani, who had broken from their species to join the rebellion. The Grathian warriors, who had turned against their own commanders. Each had their own story of suffering and liberation. The Concordat believed that strength came from domination, from forcing others to submit. They were wrong. True strength comes from standing together, from fighting for freedom, from being willing to die so that others might live free. In the audience, Admiral Catherine Moore sat beside Commodore Hannah Cole. Both women carried scars from the war. Catherine had lost an arm in the final battle. Hannah's face still showed burns that would never fully heal. But they were alive, and they were free. Neth-Arel, now the ambassador for the liberated Keth, leaned over to Admiral Moore. "When I first came to your system, I hoped you might last a few months. I never imagined any of this." Catherine smiled. "Neither did we. We just knew we could not live on our knees. The Concordat still existed, but their power was broken. Their empire had shrunk by half as conquered species, one after another, claimed their independence. The 17 elder species who had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years now struggled just to hold what remained. Some of them even began to understand. Too late, where they had gone wrong. You could not build lasting peace on slavery. You could not create true civilization through conquest. The humans had shown the galaxy a different way. Outside the council chamber, on a plaza overlooking the rebuilt city, a statue stood. It showed a human pilot with hand raised in defiance, facing a wall of enemy ships. The inscription was simple. They told us resistance was futile. We disagreed. Visitors came from across the galaxy to see it. Species that were still fighting for their freedom touched the statue for luck. Species that had already won their liberty left offerings of thanks. The humans had become something they never expected to be, a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy and across the stars. Wherever beings struggled against tyranny, wherever the powerful tried to crush the weak, wherever hope seemed lost, they remembered the species that had said no. Humanity had rejected diplomacy. They had refused the easy choice of submission. They had fought when fighting seemed pointless, sacrificed when sacrifice seemed wasteful, hoped when hope seemed foolish. The galaxy had faced the consequences of that choice. And in the end, those consequences had set the stars free. On Earth, children grew up hearing stories of Admiral Moore, Commodore Cole, Secretary General Reyes, and countless others who had stood against impossible odds. They learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision that something else was more important than fear. They learned that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or weapons, but the simple refusal to give up, and they promised that if the Concordat ever returned, they would be ready. They would fight, and they would never, ever kneel. The war was over, but the lesson would last forever.